Thank you, Francesca, very much for your introductory word. And also, I would like to welcome all of the participants of today's workshop in the name of our Bibliographical Data Working Group. My name is Wojciech Malinek, and I should be the moderator of today's workshop. I think that Francesca has already summarized all of the organizational issues. Maybe one point from my side. We will also try to collect the slides from today's workshop and make them later publicly available, probably in Zenodo. The link will be sent to the registered participant once it would be made. Just maybe a last organizational point from my side. Because we have quite an intensive program, we do encourage you to use the chat for the questions, and the final discussion or the discussion will be placed at the very end of today's workshop because of the time reasons. So I think that it is all from the organizational points. I do hope that you will enjoy today's meeting, and I will pass the word to Tomáš Umerle and Mikko Tolonen, who will be giving the opening presentation of today's workshop.
Thanks, Wojciech, and hello to all. So in our first presentation, bibliographical data and data-driven research, we aim to provide you with a very brief summary of the working group agenda and how today's topic fits into that. And then Mikko will give you more details and about our working group's approach to bibliodata-driven research. So our working group consists now of around 30 members from 15 countries, and as Francesca said, was established relatively recently, and it aims to foster cooperation between all the parties involved in bibliographical data landscape in the humanities. So we have three main goals, and the first one is discussion and exchange of ideas between bibliodata stakeholders, which could lead to joint initiatives such as grant applications. We'll be talking more about this in this presentation, and workshops such as the workshop today. The second aim is to produce knowledge, and we are working on the report about general report about bibliodata landscape in the humanities, and we plan to be publishing it this year. And finally, we also aim to organize events, especially educational networking nature, and it was the case last year in autumn with Bibliodata Workflows workshop. And as our working group aims to foster cross-sectional collaboration, Bibliodata members of our working group quite recently in 2021 have prepared an application which is called MOPED, Modeling Pathways to Digital Culture, in response to Horizon 2020 Chance Call. The project is led by Mikko Tolonen, and it involves partners from 6 countries, Czech, Finland, Germany, Hungary, Poland, and Sweden, and who aim to engage in data-driven research on bibliographical data to investigate transformations of print culture. And to achieve such a task, we have forged partnerships with national libraries from each partner country and other key European stakeholders such as IFLA, LIBER, or Europeana. And today is the open knowledge exchange session, open to the audience between the partners and collaborators. And to say more about our research approach to bibliodata, Mikko Tolonen will get into the details. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so welcome everyone from my part as well. I will be talking to you about a concept that we are using in our research and the MOPAD application in particular. Can somebody say that you can see my screen?
Yep, very well.
Okay, very good. So I'll be talking about, in short, this is I could talk for hours on end about bibliographical or bibliographic data science, which is the kind of like a main concept that we are using in our application, and which we've been nursing for some time, some 10 years now, to think about how to conceptualize what we want to do with library catalogs. So, of course, the research potential of library catalogs that has been debated and realized for decades. So in the 70s, for example, G. Thomas Cancel was writing about it. If you haven't read this particular piece, it's quite nice. You might want to look at it. One key object is that there is, of course, a division between those who say that real bibliographic science or book history is done in the archives. That's a fair point, and there's, of course, there are those who say that library catalogs, because they are not, they are moving objects, they are not the definite database for doing research, so that you can't trust them. And this is exactly the key point where we start with the idea of bibliographic data science. So you can't just tap into the research potential. So the one thing you have to understand, that library catalogs, of course, were not originally aimed to do some kind of data-driven or quantifiable research, but they can serve very much as a potential for that. So we've written an article a couple of years ago, published with Leo Lahti, who is here. Leo is a data scientist, and me and him, we are really the ones who originally conceptualized this concept. But the idea there is that in order to tap into the research potential that you have in the library catalogs, we need to build this kind of a open bibliographic data science ecosystems that are evolving, but which are also the work done with them. There's a lot of harmonization involved and work of linking other systems and bias control and so forth. But if we don't do this in a systematic way, the research potential is kind of lost. So the cases can only become part of what we are, for example, trying to do in the MOPAD application. So just to give you a kind of idea, and this is very much goes to the core of digital history or computational history these days. All the historians and humanists want to talk about larger phenomena spanning over hundreds of years, but often to make quantifiable observation is very, very difficult. So one thing that we can do once we build an ecosystem and use the library catalogs, we can start looking, get glimpses and formulate perspectives that span over hundreds of years. So for example, here we can start looking at the document formats in Europe, what is printed. Here the observation is that the octavo-sized book, for example, becomes the kind of star of the Enlightenment, and that for sure tells you something about how the spread of reading and maybe even democratization of learning is spreading in the 18th century Europe. Of course, observations that are quantifiable are not alone enough. So you need to do research studies based on mixed methods. It doesn't, the fact that you can use library catalogs to take viewpoints that are quantifiable doesn't mean that you can get rid of the archival work and so forth. So, but mixed methods is the right way of talking about it. Another easy observation is that, of course, we knew before that the Latin share of printed books is dropping quite drastically in the 18th century, but actually making the point that how drastically becomes relevant. We are currently working on a separate article looking at the vernacular and Latin printing in the Northern Europe. So what we want to do, and that's why we talk about quantitative indicators. Our claim isn't that the library catalogs will be the ultimate database that includes everything, but especially for the hand press era, we are able to really measure printing activity. And what is involved, why we need the data science part, is what I said already earlier, is that the bibliographical descriptions of books aren't made that the reason why they are originally recorded is not so that you can make some kind of a quantifiable observations. So there's quite a lot of work included in order for us to translate the data that we have, looking at for example, if we want to observe what is the print area and so forth, and of publications. So there's many steps that we need to take before we get to the point where we can actually make this type of observations. I don't have now the time to start explaining all the details in this graph, but we can talk about that later, or you can read some of our work if you would like to know more. So also, I mean, and this needs to be underlined, so quality control, bias detection in many different ways, using several different data sets. For example, when we think about the page count of books, and really thinking, using imagination, what are the combination of different data sets that we can do and use. So this becomes very, very important. But bias detection and quality control is a very, very important part of the work, and also a reason why we need people who have a training in data science in order to do this kind of work, if we want to seriously do bibliographic data science. Also, so one thing that we've been underlying, here's the dependency chart. This becomes very quickly very complicated undertaking. So, for example, with the ESTC, the English short title catalog that we worked quite extensively over the past 10 years, we have had maybe more than 15 people working on it. So we come very close to start approaching what people do in the libraries in the first place, but now from the sort of a research angle, looking at things. So this is a undertaking that also why the role, let me put this last graph that I have, why we want to talk about open bibliographical or bibliographic data science ecosystem is that once we start thinking that if we use library catalogs, of course, we want to combine that with machine readable full texts, so we can do different types of analysis with the work. So combining all of these aspects and supporting data that it comes from different directions is a very complicated undertaking. But it needs to be, our claim is research, it needs to be research driven, and there the kind of interplay between the different stakeholders, also memory organization, libraries in particular, is extremely important. And of course, this kind of idea of transparent reporting and communication, the emphasis there on the open science aspects of things, is extremely important, but it's not something that has, of course, been invented in the past 20 years. It's at the core of what we've been doing for a long time. And in that sense, we feel that especially the library catalog data, you can say whatever bad things you can want to about MARC format, but to us, it's really once we realize that how systematic it actually is and what kind of collaborations we can really build on it, to us, it seems like it's a fantastic starting point to the era of that is inevitable, that we will be working with digital data in the future, no matter what our background. And here's very good chances for deepening the kind of collaborations that we've been doing with different partners. And I'm really, really happy that, for example, today we will hear from our colleagues in the libraries and so forth. But that's all that I wanted to say. I don't know, how did I do with time? Was it okay?
Yeah, you
acceptable.
Make it
okay, sorry. But anyway, if you have any questions, if you want to talk about it, we are very, very happy now. We have to see, of course, what happens with the chance call. We haven't got any results yet. But like we said when we started, we will be doing this whether they give us a chance to get the funding or not. So this is one core, I think, of the work that we've been currently doing in this and through this working group in DARIAH, and it's been, for me at least, really an interesting way of looking at how can we build European collaboration in the research that we are currently doing. So thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mikko, for your opening speech. And I won't be talking so much, and I will directly pass the word to Mathilde Koskas. Mathilde Koskas is the head of IFLA, that means International Federation of Library Association, and she's chairing the bibliography section of this association. So we are happy to have her on board, and she has prepared jointly with her colleague Patriva the presentation of general overview on national bibliographies from IFLA perspective. So Mathilde, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Just a word about the bibliography section first, so you know where I'm coming from. This is an international group of practitioners, and it focuses on national bibliographies. We are interested in the techniques for the identification of content, arrangement, production, dissemination, and preservation of bibliographic information in national bibliographies, in particular through national bibliographic services in all contexts. Our contribution to the discussion today is drawn from our observation from the National Bibliographic Register, or NBR, and our recommendations in the common practices for national bibliographies in the digital age. The National Bibliographic Register is constituted of separate files, one per country, and those are answers to a standard questionnaire. And the other part of the register is tables and graphs for comparative analysis. Currently, we have 48 profiles that have been contributed between 2009 and 2020. Currently, more than half the submissions are from European countries. We're working on, having a better balance of the register. And I noted that the 6 countries in MOPAD have all submitted contributions. So all the figures I'm gonna give in this talk come from the National Bibliographic Register. So bear in mind the limits in scope, and also that respondents sometimes have interpreted the questions differently, but it's to give an idea and an illustrations of the main principles of national bibliographies. So this national bibliographic data, what is it? How is it produced? Data from national bibliographies are generally produced by national bibliographic agencies, which are national libraries in 96% of cases, or 46 out of 48 respondents. Almost 2 out of 3 cooperate with agencies external to the National Library, for instance, ISBN and ISSN agencies, publisher or distributors, or other legal deposit libraries. The most frequent case is cooperation with the book trade in general. The sources of this bibliographic metadata, it's for the national bibliography, it's created within the National Library or National Bibliographic Agency. In some cases, data from external sources can form the basis for the in-house record. This falls into 2 broad categories, either data from other libraries or data from publishers or from commercial data in general. In terms of scope, by definition, a national bibliography covers the national output. Selection criteria vary from country to country, but include materials published in the country, sometimes also materials printed and/or distributed in the country. It is recommended that the national bibliography be tied to legal deposit legislation and cover legal deposit material. National bibliographies frequently include materials published outside of the country and considered related to it. This is the case for 27 respondents, or 57% of the NBR. A few examples of these included materials can be materials about the country, its nationals or its culture, works created by its nationals but published elsewhere, all publications in the national language, or translations of the national literature, or literature or film set in the country. In terms of types of materials or media included in the national bibliography, all the bibliographies include printed books, which are the historical core of the national bibliography, but most also include printed serials, cartographic resources, and printed or notated music. Non-print materials can include audiovisual or multimedia, audio or sound and video recordings, electronic files or CD-ROMs, and still image such as graphics, small prints, posters, postcards, photographs, slides, transparencies, microphones, and so on. The collecting and including of digital or electronic resources has been an area of great change in the past 15 years. And there is still little consensus in the inclusion policies reported. But in the full responses to the questionnaire, several respondents made distinction between digital resources included in the national bibliographies and those controlled by other means, such as web harvesting and archiving or collection level records. In terms of distribution now, how do we make this data available? There are three broad types of current publication formats. The first is print and print analogs, such as PDF, Word, or EPUB, or static HTML web pages, or a CD-ROM or a DVD. The second one is via a database that may be integrated into the National Library web catalog, or be a subcatalog or a separate dedicated database. And sorry, the third one is record sets in MARC or other formats. So while 1/3 of respondents published their national bibliography in a single format, most of them offer two options or more. A database or web catalog being the most frequent current publication format for national bibliographies, about 60% of respondents. But the motion towards this form of publication is evident when publication history is given. Basically, the cessation of print and the move to a database or web catalog happened between 1995 and 2010. In terms of data reuse, we recommend that data be open and free, and that is mostly the case. The basic online national bibliography is freely available, but in some cases, additional services are priced, often on a cost recovery basis. Services that are not offered for free are usually print or CD distribution of the full MARC file for all national bibliography records, and extraction of custom record sets or other special services that require staff intervention. And in terms of, in licenses term, most of them function under open licenses with or without attribution. And I'm keeping the last slide maybe for the panel discussion later. But in summary and conclusion, I want to say that national bibliographic data should be open, easily accessible, and comply with international standards and formats to enable data exchange and interoperability. National bibliographic agencies should be at the heart of a data reuse and exchange ecosystem with other actors, such as publishers and producers and other cultural institutions. National bibliographies offer a unique data set because of their scope, their quality level, which is usually the highest the National Bibliographic Agency can provide, and the factor of trust and verification these institutions can bring. Consensus in recent international discussions with librarians, book trade representatives, and other metadata specialists is that this particular set, the national bibliography, has particular value in the global digital ecosystem, a very important role to play in providing free, authoritative, and trusted information. But that requires that our data be not siloed in library-only formats and system, but usable, reusable, and known by researchers or the wider public, and so on. Thank you.
Okay, Mathilde, thank you for your great overview of the situation of national bibliographies all over the world, and especially for keeping the time. And with these two opening speeches, we come to the second part of our today's workshop, which should be more problem-orientated. We have asked our colleagues from national libraries involved in the MOPAT consortium to prepare some dedicated presentation on some specific problem or some specific tool they are working with or they are working on in their praxis. And so in this next part, you should hear a 6 presentation of these national libraries. The first one is from the Finnish National Library, and I suppose that Osma Suominen should be talking today. Hi, Osma. And Osma is prepared together or jointly with Mikola Palainen and Mirja Anttila a presentation on Finnish general ontology and as a linked data. So Osma, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, hello everybody. I'm Osma and I work as an information system specialist at the National Library of Finland. And yes, I prepared this together with my colleagues Mikola Palainen and Mirja Anttila. So I'm talking about the general Finnish ontology YSO and national bibliography Fennica as linked data. So why do we want to have linked data? First of all, we want to improve the quality and interoperability of our metadata, and we want to make our data more visible also in an international perspective. And we want to build competency for the future because it seems obvious that things are heading in this direction, that linked data will be the norm sometime in the future. And of course, I have a background as a semantic web researcher, so I tend to see opportunities to use linked data technologies. So I'm also applying that. So let's start from the ontology side. So the general Finnish ontology YSO, it's a basis for our linked ontology system. It's based on our old library thesaurus YSA, which was started in the 1980s. And YSO has been developed over more than 10 years now. It's a vocabulary with a machine-readable hierarchical structure. It's multilingual in 3 languages, and it's also linked to other to domain-specific ontologies and also internationally to a Library of Congress subject headings and Wikidata. And we have persistent identifiers, URIs for each concept, and it's natively developed as COS format file, not in a traditional library format, but in a linked data format. And here you can see one particular concept, how it looks in the Finto service, where we publish YSO and other vocabularies. And the important parts here are the hierarchy. So this concept is about armors, and it has been placed in a specific part of the hierarchy under objects. And you can also see the path here. In YSO, every concept has its place. And it also has labels in English, Finnish, and Swedish, and it's identified by a URI. So this identifier is used to refer to this concept instead of a label. And our first challenge when applying this to bibliographic data was to how would this affect the MARC records we use for bibliographic metadata, for example, in the national bibliography but also other bibliographic databases. So first we needed to transform all the old thesaurus terms into references to multilingual concepts. And so in the MARC record, this is mainly the 650 field that is affected. And here you can see subjects for a particular document. This one is in Finnish, and this one is in Swedish. So we have a bilingual system where all the subjects are in the records, both in Finnish and in Swedish. But they're basically the same concept. But in MARC, you don't have, MARC isn't very multilingual, so you have to repeat some data. So in this case, 4 subjects are both in Finnish and in Swedish. And we also have the URIs in subfield 0, as is common in modern MARC. So these are identified by the URIs. Another challenge when implementing this, in putting this into practice, was that we needed to have MARC authority records for these concepts. So we needed to transform these multilingual concepts into basically monolingual or authority records. So a concept like this one, this is the concept of national libraries. So we had to create one MARC record in Finnish, another one in English, and a third one in Swedish, basically, because MARC doesn't support more than one language in a single record, or doesn't do it very well. But these are also linked to each other through 750 fields. Then going to bibliographic data, these are our main bibliographic databases. First of all, we have the Fennica, the National Bibliography, which is about 1 million record, but it's part of the larger Union catalog Melinda, which has around 16 million records. So it's a subset of Melinda, basically. This doesn't, Fennica is the main bibliography, but there are also other databases. There is Arto, which is nowadays also part of Melinda. It's specific or individual articles are described in Arto. And then there's Viola, the discography. So music material goes into Viola, not into Fennica. And these are all based on MARC records currently, but we are also planning to change that in the future. And all of this is open data, basically CC0 licensed. We have the open APIs have been opened some years ago. Everything is available. And looking at the Fennica as a data set, it consists of about 1 million bibliographic records, but then of course there are also authority records for persons, organizations, and subjects. And we wanted to turn this into linked data, into this network of linked entities. So instead of having flat records, we wanted to have something like a graph with works in the middle, but and instances, and then places, organizations, subjects, and persons linked to this. But it's not obvious how to do this, because there's no one-to-one mapping. Especially the bibliographic records can contain many kinds of information, not just about the bibliographic work, but all the related entities. So basically we had to blow up the records and reassemble the pieces into something that looks like a network. And how to do this was a challenge. We want to put in MARC and we want to get out linked data. And so we created this transformation pipeline that puts together many different tools, some in-house tools and some produced by others, like the MARC to BibFrame2 converter from Library of Congress, and piece together this pipeline that will allow us to get nicely formatted linked data in the end. And this is the data model of the results. So we have a few important classes like work and instance, and then other things around it. Linked Fennica as a data set is here in the middle, but we have also linked some parts of it to external data sets like Library of Congress subject headings and Wikidata, the Finnish place name registry, and also Wikidata here for places. And ISNI is used for persons and organizations. We also have a Sparkle endpoint for querying the data, so you can ask quite complicated questions from the dataset that wouldn't be possible with the traditional library systems. For example, we can look at the people who are so important that more than 100 works have been written about them. And this is the top list. We have Jesus at the top, then we have Mannerheim and Alvaro Aalto and Jan Sibelius and Urho Kekkonen. So these are all persons that are important to Finnish culture in some respect, because so much has been published about them.
Osman, just sorry to interrupt you. We are nearing to the end, so if you can summarize.
Yes, I am. This is my second to last slide.
Okay,
so currently we are involved in the ShareVD project. This development of the linked Fennica has been put on hold for a while, and instead we are doing things together in an international setting, developing solutions for the sharing of bibliographic data. And these are basically the key benefits. We want to make cataloging and indexing easier and more meaningful, and yes, we can find new roles, new partners, and we know that this is the way of the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Osma, for your presentation and for keeping the time. And I will pass the word to the next speaker, who will be Angela Fordbrand from German National Library. And Angela will present us a presentation entitled Linked Data and Bibliographies. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Great. So my name is Angela Fordbrand. I'm working at the German National Library in the team called Data Management. And the slides I will show much more cover a general overview over different services we have at the German National Library instead of focusing on one project. And as you said, I will be talking about linked data and bibliographies and the German National Library data shop and linked data services. Okay, the German National Bibliography is one of the more important products which we create at the German National Library. And its background is that the German National Library, also abbreviated DNB, is required by law to collect, catalog, and preserve all media publications issued in Germany, in German, or about Germany since 1913, the founding year of the library. And this large collection is divided up into 7 different series. Series A is collecting monographs and periodicals from the publisher's book trade. Series B is collecting monographs and periodicals from outside the publisher's book trade, and the 2 of those are published each week. Then there is a series especially for maps, which only is released 4 times a year, and some more series, Series H for university publications, Series M for printed music and music publications, music sheets and stuff. Series O is for online publications, and Series T is for recorded music like CDs. And all of those are released once a month. In addition to the German National Bibliography, there is also a new release service which covers publications announced by the publishers, so which are to be published in the future. The German National Bibliography contains 24 million title records. Of these 24 million, 2.3 million contain links to digitized tables of contents, and 10 million of those 24 million are online publications. The number of online publications has been rising very much in the last years, and just recently we hit the 10 million mark. Then there's also another catalog, the German Union Catalog for Serials, which contains periodical publications like newspapers, journals, yearbooks, and it contains 2 million title records. These 2 million are connected to 18 million holdings in 3,700 institutions, and it also contains address data. Then another important product of the German National Library in cooperation with the regional library networks in Germany and Austria is the authority data in the integrated authority file, and it contains 9 million records. The biggest part of that are person authority records. Then there are also subject records, meeting records, geographical entities, titles, work titles. And all of those data are available at no cost and without a registration. So I'd like to go into some more detail how the data can be accessed. We offer different formats for the data, bibliographic formats like Mark 21, Mark 21 XML, Dublin Core. Also RDF formats for linked data in different serializations, Turtle and RDF XML and others. We also have MODS data, which can be achieved via an OIA interface, and we have a more basic version of the data as CSV for the bibliographic data. And the German National Bibliography and the new release service, which is published once a month, also as a PDF file. Of course, you can access the data via different interfaces. The easiest one is to use the catalog. Just try and find and retrieve the publications you are looking for. And the data shop is connected to the catalog. And this is the only place where you need a registration to obtain data. You can export different formats of the data you have retrieved in the catalog. Via a SRU interface, you can also obtain data. You can formulate your retrieval questions and get back different XML-based formats. Then there are two different versions of an OIA interface. One is mostly used for updating your database with new updates on the data, which you have already at your place. And this relies on the bibliographic formats Mark 21 and Mark 21 XML. And then there is also a OAI2 interface, which offers the MODS data for predefined thematic data sets. And also if you have the idea of a title record for individual data sets. Of course, you can also download the data, for example, the title data and the authority data via the DNB website. Another service which is especially targeted at people who are interested in digital humanities is the DNB Lab. It offers a collection of theme-based data sets for download, for example, digitized tables of contents, as I already mentioned, about 2 million. Talks are available, free online publications, more than 500,000, free online dissertations, free digital sheet music, and articles from German language exile journals, and some more. What is important to note is that if you download one of these sets, you get the metadata in different metadata formats, and then you get the links which are in a specific field in the metadata. So to obtain actually the digitized objects, you need to follow the link in the metadata. Then there.
Sorry for a short interruption. We are in a 7th minute.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Then there are also Jupyter notebooks to guide users through what can be done in the DNB lab, and online tutorials. And just one other topic. We also have a collection of metadata, which not only comprises the German National Library's metadata, but also the metadata from all other German and Austrian regional library networks. And we use this as a basis for different analysis and matching procedures. This is a collection of more than 180 million metadata records. And for example, we use it for work clustering. That means we try to find all publications which resemble the same work. And then we try to find valuable information which could be transferred to other members of the work cluster. For example, if an author doesn't have a connection to an authority file in the DNB record, but in other records it does, we can transfer this to our record. Also, we can do this for other content descriptive metadata like subject headings or classifications. And we also strive to establish and strengthen networks of persistent identifiers by connecting person authority records of the integrated authority file to ORCID or ISNI. So thank you very much. I hope that wasn't too fast.
Thanks a lot, Angela, for your speech, and especially for that note on literary works, because as I have gone through the chat, it is the topic which is already discussed among the today's participants of our workshop. So thank you once again. And the next speaker will be Kamil Pawlicki from National Library of Poland. So we will move from Germany to Poland, and Kamil will present us a presentation entitled Interoperability of Metadata Standards and Semantic Services for Publishing and Exchanging Different Types of Metadata in the Integrated Omnis Search Engine. So Kamil, please, floor or screen, maybe today's screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Great. Maybe I will minimize this. Hello, everyone, once again. Well, the long title, but basically I would like to present you an example of these things of interoperability of metadata standards and so on, which is the integrated Omnis search engine. Well, the service integrated Omnis search engine was created by the National Library of Poland in 2020, was a part of a broader Omnis project financed mostly by European funds named Operational Program Digital Poland. Well, the main aim of the project was to give one access point to the collection of all Polish libraries. Well, the Latin word, maybe I'll hide, sorry, I'll hide this. Okay, the Latin word omnis means all or everything. So this is the aim for the future, but for the time being, Omnis search engine combines data from around from more than 2,000 libraries in Poland, including the National Library, which is still a big set of data. The data comes from various library systems, including ALMA by Ex Libris, used in the National Library of Poland, Patron by the Polish company MOL, and Mac Plus by the Polish Book Institute in Krakow. Well, the system is also adapted to download data via the OAI PMH protocol in various formats in Mark 21 and Dublin Core formats, and is easily system can be easily extended to support also other formats. Well, in a process of creating the integrated search engine, we try to rely quite closely on the FRBR model produced by IFLA in its latest version, FRBR-ALRM, which in our case meant, first of all, joining bibliographic records into work entities, so that an end user of search engine could find every manifestation of a work in a single place. And what is, I think, particular, we did not rely this so-called FRBRization on a uniform title, as many libraries are trying to do. Actually, most of our bibliographic records don't have a uniform title and don't use Mark 130 or 240 fields. Well, instead, our FRBRization algorithm was quite complicated, but putting it in a simple way, it was mainly based on other MARC fields, where first it separated one work records from many work records, which was based on many factors. For example, existence or not of semicolons in 245 field, or existence of T subfields in 700 fields. Then the algorithm created work entities which aggregate information of creators based on MARC author fields, 100s and 700s, titles based on 245 or 246, so MARC title fields, and about the languages based on my MARC 008 field, together with the number of occurrences of each creator and each title, so that creators and titles with the highest number of occurrences are considered main identifications of a work. Well, this FRBRization was made first of all for the benefit of the end user of the integrated Omnis search engine. So if I may show you for a moment, I'm not sure how to hide this this bar, but maybe I will do it like this. Okay. Integrated Omnis search engine looks like this. Okay, I'm reloading it now. So if we are looking for example, Hamlet, we get a suggestion, Hamlet, Shakespeare, William, the phrase found in title. We can go directly to this work named Hamlet, which combines all our 84 editions, which are available in Polish libraries, which also an end user can see on the map. Well, editions which have items which are available in a moment, which are closest to the user, so that user doesn't have to dig through all 84 editions. But if he or she is interested in one particular edition, he or she can go to the editions tab and choose that edition. In that case, there are much less, of course, libraries which have that edition. So data in the integrated Omnis search engine is shared in two formats: standard API, which can be downloaded to JSON format, and data converted to RDF by SPARQL endpoint. Well, actually, we can also say that concerning interoperability of this data, FRBRized data are perhaps not particularly interoperable, meaning that public libraries, at least in Poland, are not interested very much in data ordered in such way, because library systems are usually not FRBRized. So, but concerning the data not from the Omnis search engine, but just from the National Library of Poland, I can also say about another service of the National Library called data.bn.org.
Kamil, just shortly the minute number 7.
Okay, I'm just finishing.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, this service allows to API service of the National Library allows to search and download for bibliographic and authority records in XML, JSON, MARC, XML, and MARC formats. And as you can see here in the this year, number of requests was from 1 million to 2.6 million requests per month, and number of unique users from 50,000 to 85,000 per month. So quite a lot. I hope I will be able to add something about this data on this AP service during the discussion. And for now, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Camille, for your speech. It was great to hear that. And I will pass the word to the next presenters. We will stay in Central Europe because next presenter will be Maria Haškovcová from National Library of Czech Republic. And she will present to us the web archive service. Yeah, so Maria, please, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Haškovcová, and I'm from Czech Web Archive, National Library of Czech Republic, and my presentation will be about our data, metadata, and some of our tools and possibilities for research. Czech Web Archive is a digital library which preserves websites for future generation as a part of culture heritage. Our first archived websites are from 2001, and now we have more than 400 terabytes of data. This is our homepage. So we archive web content. It's characterized by rapid changes, linking content via hyperlinks, and a huge amount of content and formats. We focus on Czech web resources, and not only within the Czech domain. It could be a Czech territory, Czech language, Czech authorship, or Czech topic. For crawling, we use Heritrix and or Web Recorder, and for some special collections, for access Open Wayback, and now we test PyWayback. We store our data in VARC format. It's a container file standard for storing web content in its original context. For managing resources, websites, and harvests, we use our tool Seeder. It's an open source tool, and if you are interested, it's available on our GitHub. We have two types of metadata: descriptive, bibliographic metadata, and technical and administrative metadata. Czech legislation allows us to archive Czech web, but only for archiving and conservation purposes. And our entire archive is available only in the library building. Online access is based on contract with publishers or on Creative Commons license. And I have to say that only less than 0.5% of the content is available outside the library building. So that's why we try to find ways to provide our data, how to provide our data to researchers, for example, extract big data or manage our metadata, or make our metadata available. Our collection policy has 3 lines: comprehensive harvests, topic collections, and selective harvests. We have contract with Czech domain provider, and once or twice a year we crawl the whole Czech domain. Topic collections are related to certain event or topic. Here's an example of one of our topic collection, climate change. And for selective harvests is important selective approach, and these resources have bibliographic metadata. So resources which are part of selective harvests should have historical, scientific, or culture value. They are available online. Now we have more than 5,000 archive websites with online access, and these resources has also cataloging record in Czech National Bibliography. Yes, and these resources are crawled periodically. In the picture, you can see catalog of these resources on our websites, and they are sorted by topics according to the conspectus method. For cataloging, we use library system Aleph. We work with format Mark 21, and resources are cataloged according to RDA rules since 2015. We developed a special tool for cataloging web resources named VACAT, and we prepared cataloging manual recommendations on how to catalog web resources. So this is our application for cataloging web resources using semi-automatic analysis. The first step is to enter URL address, and after that can analysis start. This application downloads website metadata, and the software is linked to databases, for example, database of Czech ISSN National Center. So after analysis, curator fills in the remaining data and generates a MARC file. And after its insertion into LF, some fields are automatically filled in. So it's a very helpful tool and very useful tool for our curators. Here are this tool is also available on GitHub. Here are some links. Our cataloging manual is only, unfortunately, in Czech language. And there are specifics that are described, specifics such as, for example, how to edit record when the content of a page changes or redirects to another domain. Here's an example of cataloging record of web resource in Czech National Bibliography, standard record, and MARC format. So the second type of our metadata are technical and administrative metadata. They are information about the file format, technical metadata obtained during the harvest, for example, start and end date of the harvest, its type or author. We have three groups of these type of metadata related to harvests, related to container format, and related to index. Granary is application we are still developing. It's software which allows generate, extract, record, and display technical and administrative metadata, which could allow them to involve in further research in future, we hope. And this tool is also available on GitHub. And in the picture, you can see a metadata record in JSON, example of this type of record. And in the context of research possibilities, I would like to finally mention our ongoing research project, the development of centralized interface for extracting big data from web archives, on which we cooperate with University of West Bohemia, Faculty of Applied Science, the Department of Cybernetics, and with Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences. This interface should provide datasets for scientists based on their research requirements. In our case, requirements of the sociologists, and the project deals with analysis of topics and their automatic detection or analysis of audio files. It uses approaches based on deep neural networks for document classification. And our colleagues from University of West Bohemia from Department of Cybernetics have experience with these methods. So we hope that this interface will bring us new perspective on our archive data and will open new possibilities for research and with cooperation with other researchers. So that's the end of my short presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marie. I would like to appreciate Web Archive also from our personal experience, because we have been realizing a project where we are trying to collect the bibliography of Czech literary internet, and it would be hardly doable without such a great service, which is Web Archive, which is really helpful for us. So thank you once again.
Thank you very much again.
I will go to introduce the next speech. Next presentation should be from National Széchenyi Library from Hungary, from Budapest, and Sabina Iláča and Marton Németh will present us a presentation called RDA-based cataloging plans and semantic metadata enrichment options of the Web Archive collection of National Széchenyi Library. So I suppose Sabina will be presented. Please, floor is yours.
Sorry, I will start, and I start to share my screen.
Okay, don't mind.
I hope it will work. And And now I'm starting the presentation. I think it should be seen now.
Yeah.
So so we will mention two topics. My topic is a kind of plan how to set by international collaboration with content providers and libraries, web archives, settings, semantic microformats, because the problem is that there is no schema.org extension currently for web archiving, and only some basic UCLC element sets are available, but these are only contains some really basic descriptive metadata sets. And in our view, on behalf of the Special Searching Library at the Web Archiving Department, we think that microdata can be integrated into the source code of a website. We could build up a scheme with the help of some experts, and it can be really useful in various ways. For example, it could help to set crawling robots, and it can be really useful in a way that specific microdata can help to determine if we can take a complete overview of the complete structure of a website, advertisement sections, pop-up warning, etc. These elements of websites can be marked up, and in this way the content can be crawled with or without ads. And specific instructions could be set for robots if a website owner just wants a certain type of interface to get crawled, or different kind of language versions can be set to determine which language interfaces can be crawled. So in this way, the search and also important that if the start page of a website only includes, for example, a simple query box, then robots can be directed to the real starting page of the website by a set of microdata, and in this way the data can be retrieved by robots, and if the search and retrieval system of a website cannot be preserved in its original form, data behind the interface can be coded or preserved. And also another important issue that I would like to change the slide, but I can't see how I can change it. I hope now it's changing to the second one, or the
yeah, we do see the changes.
Okay, so we can also have the display of the archived material by microdata. That it's a common challenge that the crawling of materials is successful, but the archived content cannot be displayed properly, and some specific microdata elements can help to understand the structure and layout of the archived content, what kind of special JavaScript code or PDF add-ons are being used, and what kind of pull-down menus appearing. So by the help of this information that can be marked up, the archived content can be retrieved. And microdata also can help us by long-term preservation support. This can help to determine the different content formats in a website with the description of type, version, and other important features. These kind of specific details can be extremely important in the future when conversion or emulation of content must be planned, or perhaps on a new preservation or service platform. And also it is really relevant to offer research support that these can some kind of microdata can offer a major help to researchers for effective information retrieval from a huge set of the sources. And personal names or geographical names in the websites can be filtered or marked up with various namespace schemas and IDs, or links to the semantic Wikipedia or semantic library catalogs can be added. So by a scheme, it can be really useful if we could offer a standard solution in this field for content producers, and establishing and applying microdata is only possible by a strong collaboration with content providers, libraries, archives. I hope that the International Internet Preservation Consortium in the future can help to build up these connections among the different stakeholders that are needed in this field. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Sabina Ilacha, and she will talk about some plans of the metadata description of websites regarding to the new RDA conception.
Next slide, please, Marty.
Okay, just a moment.
Cataloging a web archive is not an easy task. The Web Archive didn't just introduce a new resource to the library, but due to the complex nature of the resource and the sheer quantity of the archive websites, it quickly became a library of its own. The description of resources in the Hungarian Internet Web Archive wouldn't have the same granularity. One end of the spectrum are the resources that only will be catalogued at the collection level. At the other end are the unique websites that will have detailed descriptions. Several types of metadata are important to the users when interacting with the archive resource, so our policy have to cover all of them. We started the work with the single archive websites because that is the resource that's most similar to a traditional library resource. Currently, we focus on the descriptive metadata, and we choose the LRM-aligned RDA as our content standard. Next slide, please.
Just short intervention. We are in 7 minutes, so please try to summarize.
Okay, so here you can see the outline how we treat the two different sites as two different resources instead of one resource and two versions of them. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you can see the model of the application profile. So the method for making an application profile. We chose this method because it gives a lot of details how each step should be done, and we haven't done an application profile before, so that is important to us. Currently, we are at block 2 and plan to reach block 4 at the end of this year. And thank you for your attention.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. So this
sorry for the technical difficulties, and that's why we couldn't take the presentation in the time frame we planned. But we can open to discuss all the details, either of the two conceptions.
Okay, don't mind. Thanks for that. Yeah, so thank you once again for your presentation. And I will go to the last one. The last one is not the Central European one, but the Swedish one. And Ylva Sommerland will present us a speech called The Uncharted Extended National Bibliography. And because I have to share my screen, I will start to present her slides, so I do hope that it would be manageable for me. Yeah, so presentation is ready, and Ylva, please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and hi everyone. My ambition is to give you some explanation of this somewhat long title of my 7-minute presentation here today. My name is Ylva Sommerland, and I work here at the National Library of Sweden in this building in the center of Stockholm. I have a background as a cataloger for the Swedish National Bibliography. I'm also responsible for an annual report on the Swedish National Bibliography, where we have worked on visualizing the metadata to impart the possibilities and characteristics of bibliographic data in an educational manner as a service for researchers, but also other users, such as journalists, for example. And here you see some examples from the covers and some examples from the spreads from these reports the last 2 years. I have also written articles on the subject in collaboration with a colleague from Sweden. The title of this presentation, Uncharted Extended National Bibliography, is an attempt to briefly reflect on the second question in today's discussion table later regarding the experiences of research use of our national catalog and bibliographical data. The most frequent question from researchers, in my experience, when asking for metadata from the Swedish National Bibliography, are dominated by questions on translation trends. I've chosen to limit my examples here today on translations, and if you want to read more about this, we have written about translation trends and the Swedish National Bibliography in this first article you see here, Swedish translation trends. To supply sufficient support when answering a question on national bibliographic data from a researcher, it is almost always necessary to widen the scope outside national bibliographic data to all metadata from the national catalog and sometimes other sources. The advantage with metadata created within the national bibliography is that it is reliable, consistent, and curated by catalogers. But often the metadata of national bibliographies aren't comprehensive because of the limitations of the scope and in some cases delays, as of course has been an effect in many countries the last year due to the pandemic. In the following examples, I will switch between results from the article mentioned above on translation trends and results from the annual reports. In this table from the article where we investigated translation metadata between 2002 and 2015, You see the most common languages that Swedish books are translated from, source languages. Of course, English is totally dominating. So in these visualizations from 2018 and 2019 from the annual report, we exclude English. However, it becomes clear that 4 languages are dominating from year to year, and we have a number of languages quite, we have a number of languages quite common, and then a long tail of a variation of source languages that are not so common at all, often only 1 book a year translated into Swedish. An important result that became very clear from the annual reports were that these patterns are very irregular from year to year. These 4 languages, the 4 languages that dominate, if we exclude English, are French, German, Danish, and Norwegian. And in this circle diagram, where these 4 most common source languages are shown in the center, it is possible to get an overview of which publisher specializes in different languages and who the authors are. This next picture shows a close-up from 2014, highlighting Swedish publishers that translated Norwegian authors into Swedish and who the authors were. In a comparison like this, it is of course crucial to compare the other direction of translation from Swedish into other languages. How are Swedish authors spread abroad? In most countries, national bibliographies, as you probably experience, these data are included, as also Matilda showed in her presentation, but this is not the case in Sweden. We have a separate bibliography for this. So this is an example of the extended national bibliography, and when we get questions from researchers on data from the national bibliography, we always have to go out on the winding roads outside the national bibliography, searching for metadata not registered for a number of reasons. Before I go to this slide, I can also mention that it became, regarding the quality of the data, it became very clear that there was a whole lot of more curating on the data that was included in the national bibliography. And this image shows how translation tail of Swedish as a source language in 2018. It has a different character than the visualization showing the pattern of source languages translated into Swedish. Finally, I will conclude with another example how to visualize these data, but extracted from the data that show the city where the publisher is located, who translates the book from Swedish. So this shows the most common target languages and the cities where publishers are located for Norwegian, German, French, and English translations. So this was a brief answer on what are the most common examples of requested data from the Swedish National Bibliography from the researchers that I have experienced. So thank you. I think I have a last image there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilva. I would like to thank all of the presenters from the national libraries for their speeches. It was great to hear such a variability of perspectives and approaches which are connected or related to the curation of bibliographical data in different European countries. And because we are slightly over time, but not as much as we have expected, so thanks again to everyone for keeping the time. We will slightly move to the last point of today's workshop. And this is the discussion table. We have prepared 3 questions for our colleagues from national libraries, and we will try to ask them for different possibilities of research or curation of national bibliographies. So I will start with the first question. Maybe Tomáš, please, if you can share your screen with the question so that everyone will be able to see that. And the first question is, how do you assess the current state of national bibliographies and catalogs data reuse by other stakeholders, services, aggregators, and so on? Do you see some limitation to such reuse? And if I may, I would ask Kamil for the first answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, answering this question, I would like to also here give an example of catalog data reuse from the National Library of Poland. In my presentation, I have already mentioned our API service. As I showed you, the number of API requests is really big. And so we can see that the use and the need for the records from the National Library in public libraries in Poland is really significant. But the records are also retrieved by local library system providers. For example, 2 providers I mentioned during my presentations of the Polish Book Institute and MOL, which provide systems used by many public libraries. And these providers promote among these libraries the use of our records for the sake of saving time, because these are already made records, and of consistency. And I hope also for the sake of the quality of our records. And what's more, we also observe interest from publishers, booksellers, and wholesalers. We know that some bookstore companies use our API service to enrich their data, as well as for some artificial intelligence projects. Well, concerning the limitations, I would like to name 2 of them, which we have in Poland. Where first, there is a disadvantage of having 2 information retrieval query languages. One is the National Library of Poland descriptors, delivered by the National Library and used mainly by public libraries and some academic libraries. And second one is CABA, subject headings language, based on a French National Library system, which is delivered by the University of Warsaw Library and used by academic libraries. So this existence of 2 competing systems is some kind of limitation here. And the second limitation is maybe not strictly technical, but rather legal, regards legal deposits. Well, it happens often that publishers send books to the National Library only once or twice a year. So the books are cataloged and records are created with a delay in relation to the record requirements of other libraries. So perhaps some more strict legal deposit regulations would be recommended here, but that's not an easy thing to change. But I think that's kind of a limitation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kamil, perfect. Thanks a lot for your input. And if I may, I would ask Sabina for her opinion.
In Hungary, actually, there isn't as much reuse of the National Library's data, even within the library system, as it could be. The cataloging in the National Library is based on legal deposit. Publishers usually send their publications not immediately, but wait until a couple more publication is out, and they send it as a package. That means that libraries who buy the book immediately when it is available can have it months before the National Library does. That situation will change only if the National Library somehow manage to get the publications or at least the correct trustworthy data about the publications sooner. Because the data supplied by publishers during the application for an ISBN is usually not the final version, so it cannot be the source of the description. We, and by we mean, I mean the Office for Library Standardization where I work, we plan to address publishers to establish a more reliable and efficient data flow between the two parties. As for other sectors, so far there isn't much reuse of library data by normal library stakeholders in Hungary. We always say that libraries have a great collection of authentic, high-quality metadata, and it is obviously true, but sadly it is not a common knowledge. That's not what people associate with libraries. They have very dated image of libraries, and we need to somehow overcome this obstacle. Of course, there are projects that try to change that image, but we are not there yet. In my opinion, what we need to do is shifting from just providing data to actually do something interesting with that data. It is not limited to doing something visually interesting, although that would be a recommended first step. The section done by the Big Data Special Interest Group in this year IFLA Congress provided some excellent examples about what can be done with library data, and so did you. And thank you for that. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Sabina, perfect. Thank you very much. And the next speaker would be Peter Leinen, who will be speaking for National Library of Germany. So Peter, please, your comment.
So, hi all, nice to be here. Looking at the reuse of the national metadata of the German National Library, I agree with Camille more or less to 100% looking at the library ecosystem in the German-speaking world. So our data are the basis for the daily business of the librarian spread all over these two countries, namely Germany and Austria. But looking at focusing more on the reuse in research by the researcher, it's for example by the humanities, I often earn the answer, well, there are some very well-known data like the authority file, and we are very interested in also not only reuse this system, but also actively contribute to this system, because we are very interested in these authority files. Almost the same is true for the catalog of the serials Angela has mentioned in her talk. So there are some limitations in the reuse, namely the big amount of data we have available and the, let me say, almost unknown structure of this data in the research communities. So there is one thing also Angela mentioned in her talk was this DH lab, where we provide some well-prepared data for the researcher, and also some documentations, also some basic scripts to use to handle this data in a more reliable and in a more easy way. That's to my extent one of the importance to fit the reuse of our data, especially of our metadata in the research community, is to support the researchers by using this huge amount of data and to get into the data. And also, this is a special point, also one has mentioned in his talk, is to get into the limits of this data. There is a bias in this data, and the next step will be therefore to enlarge this already huge amount of data with some additional data from other national libraries, but also from, for example, OCLC or anything else. So to get into this big amount of data is some limitations we have to deal with, and also provide to incorporate our data in a bigger network will be also necessary to support researchers with their questions.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for your input. I think that's great that you have such an interface such as the DH Lab, because it would be really helpful for the community. And I would like to ask the other panelists if they have some comment or some remark on the question number 1 we are directly discussing. If this is not the case at the moment, I will jump or move our attention to the question number 2. What are your experiences with the research use of the national catalogs and bibliographies data? And can you showcase some examples from your own country or your own experience? So this is the question number 2, and I would like to ask Mathilde for her comment on this question.
Yes. So about the national bibliographic data, I think in France there are 2 distinct uses that I can think of. The first one is for older data, basically the 19th century national bibliography, so the printed version. It's a well-known tool for book historians, basically. So we know that is being used, and it's being used for statistical approaches, but also to date, to find an approximate date for the first publication of a book, and so on. But if we think of the present and the digital metadata that we make available, it's far more difficult to assess how it is used, because it's made available. Researchers don't have to get in touch with us most of the time. So sometimes when they are doing a particularly complex search, they will get in touch to ask us for help with the metadata. And that's when we get a glimpse of the uses, and it's often statistical approaches. Like, I want to know how many books on this topic by this type of authors have been published in France in, a certain time period. That's, yeah. I also want to mention that the different forms in which we make the data available can, I think, change the way researchers use our data, because it's really not the same to be searching a catalog or a bibliography that is basically derived from a book, so you can browse it. And nowadays we've added search facilities that look like a catalog, but it's still that kind of approach. Now, libraries across the world add all kinds of data retrieval tools that enable you to get a big set of data and to sort it and to really manipulate it in many, many ways. And I think, I hope that helps research. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, so thanks a lot. We have shared hopes, and I do hope that also the research on bibliographical data will be accelerated by the possibilities or by the availability of the data of dedicated national libraries. And next speaker should be Ilva. So Ilva, please, your input.
Yes, thank you. I totally recognize the experience from Matilda, and I just have two short comments from my experience, and that is that most of our researchers that we meet, as Matilda said, most of the researchers that have knowledge in accessing the data, we don't even have encounter, but the researchers that reach out to us are often literary scholars or scholars in language studies or literary sociology, and they need our help to understand how to handle the data and what kind of data there are in the national bibliography. For example, in some cases, they don't even know how to use spreadsheets, and we are making our national bibliography accessible through a Sparkle endpoint as well. And of course, you can do some formular questions but of course they don't have knowledge in Sparkle searches and so on. So there are different aspects. So my point is that often we need to help the researchers to prepare the data, and also in the cases where we meet the researchers, it is not always a vast amount of data. It could be thousands of records, but not hundreds of thousands. So that's my point.
Okay, thank you very much, Ilva, for your input. Just technically, we have just survived an attack and crashed of Francesca's computers. So I do hope that all of you survived this situation, and I do hope it didn't affect anyone. It seems that everything is okay, that everyone can still participate at the workshop. So that's great, and I do hope that Francesca is again here with us, and that we will avoid any future problems. And if I may, I would ask for his input, Osma. So Osma, if you could please comment the question number 2.
Yes, thank you. We have some experience with research use, and mainly this is with Mikko Tolonen's group, and also involving Leo Lahti, who were mentioned at the beginning of the workshop. So they have been looking at the bibliographic data in Fennica and doing some analysis, for example, about different languages. I mean, the languages used for publishing during different time periods, and also the number of pages that what Mikko was telling about in his introductory presentation. So part of that has been done on our data, and I think it has been a positive experience for us as well. We also had some back and forth ideas, exchange of ideas around cleaning up of the data, because one obvious problem there with many of our records is that there are mistakes and omissions, and also just the kind of information that, for example, uncertain information that's often put in records by catalogers, and the researchers wanted to clean that up so that they can do proper analysis, and we have tried to incorporate some of those cleanups back into, for example, the linked Fennica. but the perspective of researchers versus catalogers, they can be different. So what looks like a mistake or garbage data to a researcher might still be valid for a cataloger. So we also, sometimes you have to resolve differences of perspective as well. And I think we would have needed more discussions like this to actually get big benefits out of this. But there are also some new research projects in the pipeline, so maybe this will be better in the future. And yeah, what others had said also, we don't always know if others are using our data because it's made up in, it's openly available. So I just today heard about the DARIAH lab that they have been using our data in Poland. So I would like to know more about this, but I wasn't aware of this before, because you don't have to tell us even if you use our data.
Okay, thank you very much, Osma. Definitely, the data cleaning is a great challenge, which could be a point for the mutual collaboration for the future. And as you have said, the point is, or the main problem is that the data might be clean from the librarian perspective, but would be dirty from the perspective of researcher, because cataloging rules are something which is not always understandable or let's say justifiable for the research. Okay, thanks a lot. Does anyone else from panelists have some comment? Peter, okay.
I may add a example of reuse of our data. We detect on a Digital Humanity conference 3 years ago a talk named Dead and Laugh in the German National Library. So we are not aware, going to this conference, what we should expect by this talk. And at the end, he is talking about the publication of novels and combined our data. This is very interesting project, combined our data with Wikidata. And he also used this authority file from Germany, very intensive. But at the end, it is a statistical project, not looking into the objects themselves. We started 2 years ago an initiative into the research communities, into the different research communities. And nowadays, people comes more and more asking before starting the project, and not only still using, not saying any words, our data. And this is a very amazing developing in the networking with the research communities. And as an example of this, we are now talking about data to analyze the distribution of children's and young adult literature all over the world. So, and this is the example I mentioned already in my first remark. We need more data than the data from the National Library in Germany. But we start with a discussion, not with using our data. And this is the process I like very much at the moment.
Yep. Thanks a lot for this input. Definitely that combination and data enrichment is a great challenge for the future. I personally was trying to combine the data of our article bibliography with the data from the authority file and try to provide some analysis on the age of the authors or on the gender of the authors. And I think that it has really great research potential, because it can answer the question we were not able to answer before. Thanks a lot for that. Is there anyone else from the panelists who would like to comment the second question? If not at the moment, I will skip to the last one. The last question is, how do you see the future for collaboration between national libraries and research partners? So maybe we are moving in the right direction to the third question. What do you expect from the research community as a representative of national libraries? So that's the last question, and I would like to ask Sabina for her answer.
What is most exciting to me is how knowledge that researchers generate can find its way back to the library catalog. I think that library catalogs should contain more information than they currently do. Information about the context, such as the effect of a certain publication, or like this was the first publication where a certain topic was discussed, or this is the most cited publication in a topic, etc. And of course, there are bibliographical and other information about how institutions and persons are connected. Due to its specialized function in the context of a national library, I think historical type of informations are the most important ones. Our reference librarians know some of this information, obviously, but generally speaking, we cannot rely on just our library staff to add this kind of information to the catalog. Because of the sheer quantity of the information we are talking about, and also it's scattered throughout the scientific fields. The bottom line here is we have to trust other people to gather this information and add to the catalog. Does this mean that I advocate that catalog should be like Wikipedia, that anyone can edit? Of course not. That would be terrible. Our catalogs would potentially be flooded with misinformation. We have to narrow down the circle. But how? How to decide who to trust? That is the same question the world has to answer now in this so-called post-truth era. Collaborating with professional researchers would be probably a good start. It might work, it may not. I think this is probably one of those questions where there is no universal solutions, and every community have to figure out a way that works for them. I don't know what would work for Hungary. Our office hasn't started experimenting in that direction yet, but hopefully we will in the near future. Until then, I'm always eager to hear about projects that experiment with involving non-library data into the catalog, and just generally like to see where this road take us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sabina. And for the next answer, I would like to ask Mathilde.
So I just want to share. Oh no, I can't share this. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to make the point that in the recommendation for national bibliographies, we explicitly mention researchers as the public for national bibliographies. But not all national bibliographic agencies that answered the NBR questionnaire mention researcher as a specific public, separate from the general public. And even when we do, I mean, in my 13 years at the French National Library, we've always said, oh yes, the French National Bibliography is for librarians and the book trade and researchers and the wider public. But past stating that, what do we do to ensure that it's actually being used by researchers, that it's presented in a way that is useful to them, and so on? Do we have specific services or outreach, and what should we do in that direction? In France, we have worked on these questions these past few years because we were working on a new website for the National Bibliography. And one of the questions was, why even a website? Why shouldn't the bibliography just be part of the general catalog for the library? And one of the things we wanted to do with that website was showcase this data set that is, in a way, a subset of the catalog, very cohesive, with quality levels and so on that are different from the 13 or 14 million records you have in the general catalog. But we also wanted to have this website so that maybe it could be a place where we could get in touch with researchers. We haven't been able to develop that yet, but our hope would be, as Sabine said, how to find a way that the data from research find its way back to us. Maybe the website could be a place where researchers could showcase the work they did with our data and maybe discuss between themselves. Maybe the difficulty is identify this subset. We invited a university professor to talk to us about that when we launched the website. And she very kindly told us, oh yeah, I know the BNF's catalog very well. I use it a lot. I didn't really know the bibliography in itself. It's very nice, but I'm not sure I'm going to use it because I'm used to using the catalog. And I still don't know if it's a problem or not, because through the catalog, she gets to the bibliography data, but we need to further the discussion. So what do I expect from the research community? I would love to know more about what we could do that would be really useful for them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mathilde, for your comment. And for the next, I would like to ask Marie.
Okay. In the field of archiving in general, the problem is that a lot of researchers don't know what data web archives have or how to use these data. And web archives have data, but they don't know what scientists might be interested in. And of course, there are legislative restrictions. So I think that it's important to communicate with researchers about their needs, and also about our data or metadata, about the process of harvesting and its limitations, storage, our tools, and so on. And we cannot provide archive data because of legislation, but we can provide metadata. So it can be an opportunity for collaboration. And not only with scientists, researchers, but also between individual web archives. And in addition to the project that was already mentioned, including Czech literary internet project, we also provide methodological support for building own archives, or we cooperate with and other institutions to create topic collections. And we hope that our research project focused on extracting big data will open for us new possibilities for collaboration with other researchers. So that's my comment to this question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marie. And I would like to ask the other panelists if they have any comments or remark concerning this question.
May I add some? Sorry, I can't raise my hand with a tool. I have to do it in the traditional way. May I add some?
Yeah, of course, please.
We started in Germany this year or last year a big initiative founded by the government on building up a nationwide research infrastructure. And the German National Library is now a part of this infrastructure and is part of this research networks. And we will provide our metadata and also our bibliographic data in a tool called federated content search. And at the next step, the first step is to have the metadata. The next step is have an access to our digital objects, which is a little bit more complicated because there are some copyrights on it. But nevertheless, what we expect from this cooperation with the researchers is, on the one hand, an awareness of what the national libraries and other libraries, by the way, also the State Library of Göttingen, has to offer to the researchers, but on the other hand, to understand the special need of the researchers and to address them as a special user group beside the reading room we have, or beside the individual user we have at this point. But we have to open the discussion from metadata to metadata and objects themselves very quickly, I guess. So this is a little bit special at that point. And last but not least, what we would expect is to clarify the interface between these user community and the role of the National Library in providing some specialized services, doing some, as you mentioned already, doing some enrichment of data, doing some research by our own to support researchers in their research questions. This would be also one of the objectives we address by this strong cooperation within the next 5 or maybe 10 years.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot for your comment, and it's great to hear that such initiatives are starting to exist, and we do hope that we will hear soon about their results and their activities. Is there any other comment from the panelists at the moment? If you want, you can raise your hand. It's in the right down corner under the reactions button. There is a possibility to raise a hand. So if you would like, you can use this this possibility. But if I don't see any other question, and we are going slightly over time, I would just close the discussion table. I would like to thank all of the panelists for their inputs and for their ideas. I think it was great points we have heard, and maybe because we are running slightly out of time, I would just like to ask the participants if there are some question from the audience. We have maybe time for 1 or 2 of them, because I suppose that all of the participants are quite hungry, and I really do appreciate that every one of us, or nearly every one of you, have stayed with us for more than 2 hours lasting workshop, full of speaking and speaking and speaking without any possibility to ask. But so the possibility to ask is now at the moment. Is there someone from the audience who would like to ask for something? Please just raise your hand. If there is no question for that, or I'm just
yeah, Vojta, if I could, maybe not okay. A question, because we are over time, but maybe just 2 small comments. One is that, of course, a great discussion, a lot of points, and I think that for the research community, one thing that Sabina said was very important, and is quite a fresh topic, I think. So how the knowledge created by the research community can get back to the catalogs, get back to the libraries. It's a very critical question, and it's a new challenge for interoperability between research, data processing, pre-processing, and then how to get back those important insights into the catalog, so that everyone who is not a audience for research, but is an audience for catalogs, can get something out of those research insights. very critical and very exciting topic for me for the future. And this is one comment and maybe just a assurance on the side of the working group that we very much intend to continue with our cooperation started like that, and all the topics mentioned here it will lead us into future discussions and meetings around the topics that are of interest for you and that we can cooperate on. So be sure of that this is not our one and only meeting, but the start of more meetings of that kind. So that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, Tomek, thank you very much for your summarizing remark, and maybe let's go to the end of our today's workshop, because I haven't seen any question from the audience. So I would like to thank you all once again for staying with us and for being here for our workshop. And we do hope it is not the last one, that we could meet somewhere in the future and organize maybe some more dedicated workshop or some maybe in-person meeting to discuss, to have a possibility to discuss such questions more closely. Thank you very much from my side. I don't know if Francesca or Miko would like to say or some concluding words for the moment.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone as well. Just a final word about the next working group meeting, which will take place next Thursday, 7 of October at 10:30 CST, Central European Summer Time, and it's from the DARIAH working group on the AI and music, so artificial intelligence and music. And you can register on the DARIAH website, so you're very much welcome.
Thank you.
That's and I think we can close with the recording. And if no one wants to add anything,
I'm not sure if Miko would like to say.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just from the perspective of the bibliography working group. So I mean, it's very, very good. There was so many good points, important points from different perspectives brought up. And one good thing is that we are fairly well organized now. Also with respect to getting the contact from the research, but especially from the library side, the way that the national libraries are connected and how well actually the information flows. So now if we are able to kind of put some larger objectives as an infrastructures and really try to make some goals within the next few years, what we aim to do, I think that there would be great chances of taking like systematic steps forward, so that if we're thinking about from the perspective of data coming from the bibliographies in libraries and national catalogs and research use. So especially with respect to the kind of question that arised, that what is the researcher's needs? So that if we even more systematic in giving you the kind of answers, and then you may be providing with answers of meeting those needs. So I think that would be superbly useful on top of what everybody's doing on their own.
Okay, thank you very much, Miko. Thank you all once again for participation on today's workshop. I think that we can close our workshop, and I wish you good appetite for your lunch, because I think that all of you are hungry at the moment. And I do hope we will see each other somewhere in the future, at least online or maybe somewhere in person. Thanks a lot once again for your participation, and have a nice day.